Hello?
Hello. Check.
Our levels actually look kind of optimal. We're just coming in at about... What I like to do is, give myself a lot of headroom for the mastering, the mixing and mastering.
Well, I mean, I've spoken to many mastering engineers, and I know they like you to come in around -6 dB.
-6 dB, yeah. And there's lots of talks because there isn't really a standardized system with DBFS. So, what I do often is with our podcast, when I'm running it through my Neve 1073's matched pair, just to add some air, really, just to kind of get some of that wooden kind of flavor out of them. I like to use like a digital VU meter because they're more reliable. They mimic analog technology, and I come in at about -10 DBFS. So, but that's
you do
just
a great
me.
job.
You can go up to 14. I mean, really, it's about LUFS anyway. It's about LUFS these days, especially when it comes to optimizing audio for podcasts. Because look, we're trying to
win awards.
Win awards, not for content.
No. That's never going to happen.
No, we're trying to win awards for...
Well, I'll tell you do a great job because, I mean, I don't know how you do it because I hear the playback when we do a podcast.
Yeah.
And it sounds good. And then, boy, when I hear that finished product you put out, it's just night and day.
Well,
it really brings it to life.
I've been using the UAD Capital Chambers plugin a lot. And the Ocean Way Studios plugin.
It does have an Ocean Way feel,
I bet.
honestly.
Yeah. So, and I think it helps that we both use original Neumann U47 microphones too. And and I, of course, like as you can imagine, this goes without saying. After I hit the EQP1A, just for that kind of happy face EQ, broad kind of booster 100, boosted about 8K.
I'd like to think that Neumann, when they designed the U47 microphone, probably intended it would be for something like this 75 years later.
Certainly. Well, I mean, you would assume so. I can only think that Neumann is looking down on us from heaven, thinking everything I dreamed would happen.
Neumann.
Yeah.
That's what he didn't have a first name.
Bert Neumann.
No,
he was just Neumann. Newman, I guess.
Kind of a new wave feel to that.
Yeah, no, krautrock.
Gary Neumann.
Gary Noy. Michael Rota. Just a kind of, Hallo Gallo kind of energy. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Speaking of mastering, I forgot to tell a funny story when we were doing Thriller.
Yeah.
The Shiloh's first album got mastered. We'd gotten signed to the label, and they were like, So Wild, our first album, they were, it was kind of like a new thing. They wanted to make us feel fancy, so they were like, whoever
Sterling
in the world
sound.
you want to get to master it. So I didn't really know, and I just looked up who's the best. So I asked around, and everyone was like Bernie Grundman,
Yeah, Grundman.
So I said, okay, get him to master it, right? So we've sent the record. I had just a dumb kid. I had no idea who the guy was. I think I'd heard he'd done like something that I liked, but like it wasn't a big record,
Yeah.
And then we sent it. He sent the master back. Sounded like shit.
Really?
And I listened to it and I said, "What the fuck is this?" Like
$7,000.
So bassy, like
really?
Just like we were trying to sound. So I literally
it's trying to sound like Radio City.
This cocky kid. I was like, "What the fuck's going on here?" So I fucking picked up the phone and I called Sterling Sound.
Yeah.
And I said, "I want to talk to Bernie Grundman, please." And they were like, well, who is this? I was like, I'm the singer and producer of this Shiloh's record he just mastered, and I just want to talk to him about it. And they were like, kind of like, okay. And then they were like, we'll get him to call you back. And an hour later, the phone rang, and he was like, hello, this is Bernie Grundman. I didn't know who the guy was.
Kid.
And I'm like, hey, buddy, I'm like, just want to let you know, you did this. I was like, it's all wrong.
Wow.
I was like, the master's all wrong. And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, it's way too much bass. Like, I don't know, it sounds too modern. And I was like, we want
it. It kind of sounded like you were listening to it from like a car going by. You could hear like the woomphy.
Yeah, and I was like, I want it to sound like these old records you mastered in the 60s.
Yeah.
And he was like, cool. He's like, everybody wants it to sound big and deep and bassy now. He was like, I get it. He's like, you want it to sound like that old shit. I'm like, yeah, do it. And that'd be wicked. And he did it again and sent it, and it was beautiful.
Hell
it was
yeah.
perfect. But then I was looking at the Thriller LP when we did it.
Yeah.
He mastered fucking Thriller,
Fuck
dude.
yeah, dude.
And
That
I called the
rules.
guy up to give him shit.
Well,
I mean, no, whatever. Like,
it sounds like a humble guy.
yeah, he was cool.
Making $7,000 a day.
Yeah.
Well, like a record. So
To
times
like
that
run
by
it through
10
like
that he
a
does.
program, to get a lackey to
program.
run it through like a program.
Didn't you have some mastering another record at Capitol?
I got a new guy at Capitol.
You got a
He's
new
the
guy?
best. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's you know, my friend Dan Horn told me he's
With
like
an E,
he's
right?
like all the good mixers have a guy.
Oh yeah.
And he was like my guy
Yeah.
at Capitol, and he was the apprentice of the guy at Capitol who
Yeah.
did all the Beach Boys, everything, and they still use all the old analog equipment.
And the chambers, presumably, for if they want to do like an East Coast style mix where they just gratuitously add their own reverb.
Yeah, and he did my record that didn't come out this year. He did a phenomenal job. It was great.
Well, for anyone who wants to know who my mastering engineer is, it's a lady by the name of Elisa Pang Sayang. She's phenomenal. But in the past, it's been Greg Kelby and Dave Cooley, but she has...
We did Calby for a while.
Yeah,
too.
well, listen, who
All
did
that
man?
fucking
all
shit.
that shit. I love all that shit.
I'm gonna get Elisa. Is that her name?
Yeah.
I want to get her to master some stuff for me.
I mean, there's no one better.
What about that guy Brandon got who does it all with tape?
That's what Gavin rules.
He's cool too.
He's great. I mean, if you want to go that route, for sure, yeah. Or route. I
Yeah.
think that someone like who talks like this would say route.
I don't know.
If you want to go
right,
that route.
music, like
Music
when you're
kinda-
routing cables.
Yeah,
and
route.
stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Like routing.
Right.
It wouldn't be rude. Yeah, he's great. Gavin's amazing. Yeah.
Speaking of taking a different route,
we're
we're talking about Bob Dylan's "Blood on the Tracks" today.
yeah,
Sort of a detour, in my opinion, from where he'd been previously in his career.
Yeah, I mean, he'd been everywhere, man. He'd already done 4 different careers by this point. That
Yeah,
also was
at
like
least.
when I first got into Blood on the Tracks, it was like the first time probably that I had, or the first experience I had with an artist who I liked records of theirs, wildly different records of theirs 10 years apart. And I remember it being a bit of like a galaxy brain moment where I was like, fuck, this is like 10 years after Highway 61. And I'm listening to it 30, like the whole thing didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
That he'd already like had a career, had 2 really, kind of gone off to Woodstock, been what I would suggest pastoral in his recordings from the late 60s, early 70s.
Pastoral, kind of paternal period.
Yeah, kind of an idyllic relationship with nature, I would
Yeah.
say,
5
he's-
children he had
Yeah.
at the time.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
After his crash, right?
Yeah, and I was kind of reading about it. It's really beautiful stuff, man. Like, I love it. Like, he had the crash, and then he just kind of he was like, I'm just gonna kick it with my wife and kids at Woodstock. And he said, I was just sitting out there just looking up at the stars one day.
Nice.
And he's like, and I just realized something had changed. And I was going to do something different, and I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
And then he went to New York to like study with this painter.
Yeah. Which is like a bigger Blood on the Tracks thing.
Yeah.
Tangled Up in Blue.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and he said that what
Which is
the
a
painter
color you
taught
can
him, I
paint
forget the
with.
guy's name, was his concept of
Artie
how
Fuff
time
Kid.
worked completely changed.
Yeah, which is Tangled Up in Blue.
Yeah,
for sure.
And he said all of Blood on the Tracks is really just a comment on time.
Well, I actually read that it was an entire album based on Chekhov short stories.
Oh God, he fucking knows what he's talking about.
Dude, he said that in Chronicles.
He's also said that it's not at all autobiographical.
Yeah.
Which is kind of hilarious.
The quote from Chronicles is, I would even record an entire album based on Chekhov's short stories. Critics thought it was autobiographical. That was fine.
I read it.
It's definitely not based on Chekhov's short stories.
No, and I also read a quote from the other day. He was like, what some journalist said that song was about my wife. He's like, can you believe that?
Idiot win.
He's like, what an asshole.
Yeah.
Like to even suggest that. Like you're a big girl now or
Yeah.
something. Like it's like, weren't you going through a hard?
Well, he also was. She'd left by then. I mean, there was a period of time. Like she was he was fucking some other broad up in Woodstock,
Yeah.
like some A&R
Yeah.
girl. He couldn't do
Ellen
that anymore.
Bernstein was her
Bernstein,
name,
yeah,
yeah.
he couldn't do that anymore. That'd be a Me Too thing, you know, being like Dylan and having a younger, you know.
Yeah, I
piece
don't know much about
from,
that, but
from your label.
he
'Cause
wrote
You're
all
Gonna
the
Make Me
songs. He was,
Lonesome.
hanging out with her on a farm and
You're
wrote
Gonna
all
Make-
the songs.
Yeah, You're Gonna Make Me Lonesome when he goes about her.
Right.
So it isn't all about his wife.
No. It's what it is. It's just the most gorgeous, sprawling tale of love and relationship.
Yeah.
On a record ever. I think like it's just like it's a conversation between a man and a woman. The whole thing, and to me, and it's just Alex and I listened to it last night, and you know, man, you just sit back and sing along, and it's just breathtaking. The songs.
Do you think you could do?
I was upset at how good they were.
Do you think you could do the whole? Well, that's because you have a strange relationship with, you know, music. I just have ultimately just joy at how good. They are.
I don't mean it that way.
Did you know that other than just being like the best Dylan record? Well, I mean, we could do top 3. We could do that again. Is it in the top 3?
Of course, it's number 1 for
Is
me.
it for you?
I mean, I don't know if it's my number 1 because it changes all the time, like
Yeah.
depending on what kind of vest I'm wearing or something.
Yeah, you're definitely wearing like a
New Morning
pastoral New Morning
self-portrait.
Yeah, it's
era.
that, and kind of like also like shades of McCartney.
Definitely.
Yeah,
He's the
Richard
best
Thompson.
king. Yeah.
Yeah,
But Blood on the Tracks, I think, is his best album. I mean, it's and Dylan knew it too, right? Like that's why he went back to Columbia, because he was like he knew that it was his best work and that he needed the company to help get it
Interesting.
out.
Okay.
Because he left and went to Asylum for 2 albums.
with
Planet
what's his
Waves.
name?
And,
You know, the Geffen.
yeah, Geffen, yeah. Electra or something. Yeah,
Asylum, I think.
yeah.
You know, I think it's Geffen.
And then he went back to
You know,
Don
Geffen- oh,
DeVito.
Yeah, Don DeVito,
Which
the sleaziest producer name of all time.
But I was watching this
Tommy
interview with
Mottola.
John Hammond and Don DeVito about Blood on the Tracks before it came out. It was amazing. They're just feeling it so hard, like they're just so pumped on Dylan and the album. And
Yeah.
Don DeVito's like, you know, Bob knew what we could do for him, and he came back. He knew, and what he did, he gave us the time to really work this album.
Interesting.
He's like, he had a very professional approach, which is not usual for Bob. And he was like, so what we've done, he's so pumped. He's like, we've got it. We've got the promo copies out. All the radio stations have them. And we know this is going to be a top 40 radio record. All the record stores they've all pre-ordered. The pre-orders are all done. He's like, it's all that. You should see him talking about. He's so pumped, and he's like, and Bob's ready. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The artwork. He's like, you look at the cover. It's
Yeah.
perfect. His name's big. The title's big. There's
Yeah.
a picture of him on the cover. It's everything a record company wants. He's like, and we're ready
Amazing.
to go. And they were right. It went to number 1.
Synergy.
It was a number 1 record.
Corporate synergy.
Yeah. And Don DeVito. I wanted just to hear like
Some tales
that he
of
went the way of Don Simpson or something.
Yeah.
But no, I think he's a pretty normal guy.
the recording of it, I guess. Well, like no, so Don DeVito was. I thought he produced it, right?
No.
Okay.
This thought that he did. He did Desire. But
Oh.
it's kind of a people think he did, but he didn't produce. He started on the next one. And then he
'Cause-
did like Street Legal and
Because the whole thing, yes. Because the whole thing, like that, was artist kind of. You read like pieces of like literature with regards to the recording of this record, and obviously it's famous that like he got like a rip in New York session band in and just like hated it, pulled it, and went to Milwaukee, right, and like got a bar band to play on it that never was credited.
Minnesota, yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
never credited. Like they made no money, and even during it, he was like. By the end, it was just like him and the bassist. He was just like kind of getting rid of people the whole time.
yeah.
You know,
I mean,
a tremendous amount of vision.
what Don DeVito also says in that interview, he says, this album was recorded in 5 days.
Yeah.
And mixed in 2 days.
Yeah.
And he said, that is almost unheard of. He's like, you see all the other men, Simon and Garfunkel? He's like, Simon and Garfunkel, try 8 months.
Yeah.
He's so fired up. He's like, they're in there 8 months
Keyed up.
experimenting. doing all this bullshit.
What the hell are they experimenting at? Like finding new
Alex,
notes?
what was the other one you mentioned? Oh, Springsteen.
Yeah.
He's like, Bruce Springsteen? He's like 8 months.
Yeah.
He's in there doing
Yeah.
God knows what.
Yeah.
Bobby's in there 5 days. And you know what, man? Like, I was listening to it last night. And don't get me wrong. I know what you think about, like, that I that I get upset about music because I wish it was me or something. That's not what I mean.
Certainly not.
What I mean is it's a joy. It is from a joyous love of it that it's so good and so intense that I just like, I don't know. Like, I don't understand where it comes from or something. And I wish that I did or something like that. But I'm happy it exists.
Great
I'm
work
happy
of art.
he made it.
Sublime.
But
Not the band, you know.
But when I was listening
The
to it last
concept.
night, man, it was so crazy. I was listening to If You See Her, Say Hello.
She might be in Tangiers. Kind of like...
What is it with all the...
They're all there.
All those
Al Stewart
rock
was
stars
there.
loving Morocco.
Well, I think it's a lot to do with like...
Don't
well,
you know we're riding on the Marrakesh Express?
Well, I'll tell you, Johnny, what it is. It's because Paul Bowles went there in the 50s. He's the first guy to go. Paul Bowles, the writer, and his wife Jane. And he wrote one of the best... Well, he wrote a few books, and a lot of them are set and centered around life in North Africa. But the most famous of them being The Sheltering Sky, which is just like an incredible book, like maybe like top 5 for me. And it follows the story of like a couple from New York who go to North Africa after the war to kind of like, I suppose, like glamp, like live it up in this, but actually misunderstanding the culture and the traditions of this place. But obviously he went, in the book, it's a real sort of psychological thriller, like bad things happen. Paul Bowles went. Then the Beats all went there too, right? Like, you know, so Ginsberg and Burroughs, like Burroughs was there, like
Jimi
just
Hendrix
doing
famously.
Well, eventually, like after like Burroughs was doing Skag there for years, and eventually it became this kind of almost a trope. I mean, this is the 60s, so it was a place that Americans went, you know, to do dope and kind of be weird and freaky bohemians and stuff.
Yeah, and
so,
I think it was it was a very free, open place.
It was a free place. Probably doing some things that, you know, you couldn't get away with in the States, you know. So
And probably there was just like, I think like the hash was really
the
good.
hashish.
So they just loved
Yeah,
that.
exactly. Yeah. But
I
read that book, everyone.
Sure.
This is like an earnest. This is like going to be. We were talking about this because it's like both really just love this record so much. This will end up like, you know, these are earnest. This is an earnest and frank discussion about one of the great works of art.
I can't joke about this.
I certainly won't.
You kidding me?
No.
But I mean, and that's what I was hoping there'd be some jokes in Don DeVito's life.
Yeah.
No. But so I listened to If You See Her, Say Hello, and I counted listening to it.
Yeah.
6 or 7 flubs on the bass and on the guitar.
Yeah.
And I realized I was like, what I was saying the other night about Neil Young with pops and shit on the mic and stuff like that. And you were like, it's so good, I've just never even noticed that.
Yeah, it's true.
And I listened to it, and I was just thinking, it's so fucking crazy. I've never even heard that, but it is just that the songs are so good. And Alex made the astute point that she said, but that's also just not the way that Bob Dylan wanted, like, to make music and to make art. He didn't care about putting out like a perfect product.
No.
What he cared about was getting the song out in the way that it was going to get out in that session.
Capturing
and that's
a
why
moment.
he would re-record songs.
Sure.
He would change them live. He would do everything and just capturing a moment. But it wasn't about, same with Neil, it wasn't about like studio perfection.
Well, it was. I don't think there is I mean, it's like it's an interesting like way to philosophy for approaching music, but like I think I've read or seen an interview with Dylan talking about like a Rolling Stone, where he's like, yeah, it's like it's really good, but I definitely have played it better in like Minnesota in 1982. In fact, that's the one that stands out to me, and just like, and it's also maybe like self-preservation. It's a protection to like view it more as capturing like a good account of the song at the time that you create it, because, you know, like he's played what, Tangled Up in Blue, another 5,000 times since then or something.
Yeah, and it's just not the way. It's like any art.
No, it's his
though.
ethos.
Yeah,
no,
it's
I mean it's just the way it's probably the folk tradition, really.
Yeah, or like think about like like a painting, like like a Da Vinci painting versus like a Jackson Pollock or anything like that. Like it's just like some people want it to be perfect symmetry
Tomatoes,
and coloring,
tomatoes,
and
right?
like think about if
Potato,
there was a
potato.
fucking guitar flub in Blackbird. You know what I
Sure.
mean? How bizarre that would sound to listen to.
Just because you know McCartney's approach to making music.
Exactly.
Maybe, but he can get weird.
But there's
And also
no
less of a-
errors in the music ever.
Really?
Never. I would dare you to find one.
What about
in
like the
anything
drums on Jet?
There's no like mess up though. Like nobody like drops a beat.
You know that on what's it called?
There's certainly no one would hit a wrong note on a
No.
McCartney.
Apparently,
But that's cool. Like
yeah,
he
that's
wants
his
that.
vibe. Yeah,
Like Rumors, like they don't
Yeah,
want that.
no.
But like Neil, like Bob.
Jack of Hearts was a one take, and you can
Amazing.
tell because he even changes his
Harmonica?
in it because
You
he
hear
realizes it's in the wrong key and changes it during the take.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Do you think he had the lyrics written down?
You'd-
Or do you think he knew it all?
It's interesting
Fucking
that
incredible.
maybe written down.
I bet he knew him.
You think so?
Yeah.
I mean,
I bet if anyone's going to mess that up, it's going to be the band, and they're the ones who are worried.
yeah.
Like-
but I mean, you could listen to like Stuck Inside a Mobile with the Memphis Blues again, and it's got the same kind of thing where it's like, and there's another verse. It's just going, and the band, which is the band,
Yeah.
sound like they're not sure when it's going to end.
Yeah.
Like several times.
Well,
They're like, I think there's like 14 verses in like
Jack of Hearts
Heart.
is crazy because, like, I was really impressed at the
He probably
band.
never could be fucking bothered playing it a second time, honestly.
Yeah,
I mean,
and the band keeps the tempo up, man. They do well. Like,
Yeah.
the bass player just boom, boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom, boom. They're really into it.
you know that it was all taught. He couldn't be fucking bothered teaching anyone these songs.
Yeah.
So it went like through the band leader, which was just a guy who worked in like Guitar Center.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which actually makes a lot of sense because if I was in a city, a new city, and I didn't know where to go to find the best musicians, I would probably go to my local Guitar Center, Long and McQuaid,
Yeah.
and ask around.
Well, you'd hope and pray that they were free.
Yeah,
to play
because,
on your session. They're in high demand.
Yeah.
You
Shout
know-
out to our boy Shitty.
P shitty.
I too wonder where those guys, the Long and McQuaid employee on the rooftop in like Markham, Ontario, where he is in the ranking, the nationwide rankings. And for
yeah.
our American listeners, Long and McQuaid is just our version of Guitar Center. So you can apply the same kind
And
of logic.
for our American listeners, we'll take you on toe to toe
Well,
any day.
it's interesting.
L&M versus Guitar Center.
I think that, like...
Should be an Olympic
It
sport.
should be an Olympic sport. I'd watch it. And along
definitely would watch
dude,
it.
I would watch it. I'd watch it. You know what?
I'd bet on it.
And you probably could bet on it at Sports Interaction.
Yeah,
They'd probably
where the
let
winners
you.
win.
Where the winners win.
And Long and McQuaid, where the music
Begins.
and
Ends for a lot of the people
that's
who
if you end
work
up working there.
Yeah, but, but in the meantime, you probably learn how to shred.
Finger tap
You definitely... I think it's a prerequisite to work in there. You need
in
to
the
tap.
interview. Yeah.
They ask you. Kind of like when you got asked what kind of music are they playing when you tried to get a job at Zulu Records.
Yeah.
When you got asked by like Grimmer or something like, what kind of music do you think they're playing?
Brady Cranfield.
Yeah.
Do you know that when I lived in Victoria, I went and saw a show at Lucky Bar?
I love that place.
And there was the opening band. They went on stage, and I said to myself, I recognize those guys because they all worked at Long and McQuaid.
Hell
you know
yeah.
the best part about
Yeah.
it, dude? In the middle of a guitar solo, the guy changed his guitars twice.
Well,
he had
that makes total
because
sense
they
to
had
me.
access to
Yeah.
all the rentals, and I couldn't believe it. He played. He like went from like in the middle of a solo from a Les Paul
For,
to
like-
a Strat.
So presumably he wanted to go from like he had like the solo started with a more muscular kind of Harley Davidson rocking tone.
Yeah.
And he wanted to go a bit more stabby, a little bit more Johnny Marr by the end of it.
Dude.
Kind of more Tom Verlaine by
I'm
the end of it.
100% serious. This happened, and I was in
to
the
me,
crowd.
it's the only way to play a solo. I don't know how you would do it any other way.
It was impressive.
I love it that you do. Just for the listeners here, Johnny always does a walk-off. Just a kind of mic drop, walk-off mic about halfway through, which I appreciate because he's getting me a beer. But he does it in continuous talking, as if the microphone sort of just like followed him. You should just get like a little Madonna mic. You know? Just like a kind of... like a headset. If you got a headset, then you could just... you kind of like a bit of a, Patrick Bateman, American Psycho kind of energy. You could just walk around eggshell, nice.
I'm going to get one at Long McQuaid. Wireless.
You could go wireless.
Yeah.
We could both go wireless.
I'm going to do it.
That'd be nice.
I think we should do it.
Yeah.
I want a headset for this.
It would be good. Because then you could have both hands free to research. To do like live stats.
Long and McQuaid had what do they call their sale? Is it called like Rocktober?
I think it might be called. If it's not, it probably should be.
And a lot of good deals. And I was scrolling through on the morning of Rocktober, and I saw
their attic sale.
Yeah, the attic sale. Yeah, and they had a wireless headset mic.
Yeah,
and I seriously considered it.
Well, I mean, I can see why. The Tangled Up in Blue has an interesting honor. It's been bestowed an interesting honor on it that kind of segues between kind of the elite pantheon of, rock guitarists, and at this point in post history, the best way that you can express your ability to do such guitar work. Tangled Up in Blue is the sort of Mount Everest of Rock Band 2. The video game, songs. It's the last hurdle you have to overcome in the impossible vocal challenge. So, to win Rock Band 2, you have to be able to sing the whole of Tangled Up in Blue.
That's bizarre.
I feel like I could win Rock Band 2.
That, dude.
But I don't know what comes before it. Presumably it's...
like Back in Black or something.
Maybe. I feel
you
like...
just pretend like you're taking a shit. Back in
Yeah,
Black!
they have a new record out, don't they?
Sounded pretty good.
Did it?
Isn't it kind of a similar, like, No More Lockdown feel? They're upset about the pandemic, too.
Yeah,
but only because...
they lost one of the... AC/DC, didn't one of their members, like, just get put in jail for, like, doing meth and having slaves or something?
Yeah, they're just upset that they can't go out and make, like, $200 a show at arenas.
Yeah.
Hey, what's your favorite verse in Tangled Up in Blue?
When I think about the alphabet, if you'd say, like, what is like where's J in the alphabet, I have to go like A B C D E F G. So with Tangled Up in Blue, I have to go like early on in the sun is rising. I was saying, I have to go.
My
through
favorite
it.
is
I think the Book of Poems.
She was working in a topless place, and I stopped in for a beer.
I just keep looking at the side of her face in the spotlight.
So clear.
What about the like?
But that part, leading into the Book of Poems, which is my favorite,
which is the time thing moving around,
and it's also very Al Stewart like painting. He paints the scene in one line where he says, "She lit a burner on the stove and offered me a pipe. I thought she'd never say hello. She said, you look like the silent type." Like it's very like you see it. You see him there.
Yeah, he's explaining.
But it's me, isn't it? I was thinking about...
Yeah.
Oh, but that's interesting because Tangle Up in Blue, there's two versions, and one is first person and one is second person.
Yeah.
And you were talking about Al Stewart writing in the second person, and Al Stewart also writes in the third person on the song, "You Should Have Listened to Al."
Wow. Far out.
And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about that shit is cool to me, and like Ray Davies and Randy Newman.
Yeah.
And how people like... John Lennon, it's all me.
Yeah, of course.
I should have known better.
Yeah.
I'm so tired. I'm only sleeping. I want you, she's so heavy. I want to hold your hand.
Yeah.
Me, I, me, mine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, I like, she started interfering with slaves and something inside of his dad. What's that all about?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. Kind of.
Simple Twist of Fate. I mean, I like
that. That's got to be about him meeting Sarah. Kind of bluesy.
She was walking on by the arcade.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Don DeVito.
First time I learned to play that kind of D sus chord.
Well, it's all in one tuning. The whole album.
Yeah.
If you learn that, it's great fun.
Yeah.
the whole. I read this interview with Mike Bloomfield.
Okay, great.
Because he was like, you know,
he played
Bob,
on it, didn't he?
No.
Originally, and they told him he was shit.
No, Bob was like, he wanted to have the same band, like the kind of Highway 61 band.
Oh, right.
So he's like,
well, originally he intended it to be a heavy record, I think, didn't he?
yeah, and he was like, Mike Bloomfield was like, so Bob called me up and he came by my house. And he's like showing me the songs. And they were all so fast and all in the same key.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure out. And he was really upset that I couldn't just figure them out.
Yeah.
And he was like, it was one of the craziest experiences of my life.
I think I read the same thing. And it was interesting reading through the musicians who got ditched and the kind of like musicians union take on it, where it was, they were still pissed. They were like, we could have made the record better. You know? The fuck are all those people?
Don DeVito knew it was good.
Yeah.
And he wound up producing his next 3 albums.
Exactly. And it's not like they got worse. Well, Desire
Do you think
is
that
good,
do you
but-
think that
I know you like the
Stephen
Christian
Stills was also being doing an audition to play on Blood of the Trap?
Well, it's interesting
in that
because-
hotel
well,
room, and he also blew it.
Well, we know that's interesting, but I don't think so because I think he'd already recorded Blood on the Tracks and was playing
But maybe
songs
only the
from
first
it.
time.
Sure, it's possible, yeah. And Stills didn't realize that he was, because he was in the Super Sessions. He could play with Al Cooper. He was capable.
Yeah, maybe he's like, hey, pick up a guitar. Maybe you could be on this
Listen,
thing. And then he
choose,
just thought
there's a
it
few here.
sucked.
Choose your pick a sword off the wall.
And
Let's
he's like,
duel.
"Whoa." Yeah, exactly.
The dueling banjos guy is the only guy who got credited on the record.
On Blood on the Tracks?
Yeah, as a musician. Because they'd already printed like 200,000 copies of it. When Dylan was like, fuck this, I'm changing it all up. But they were like, well, we've already printed these sleeves. This is a real Spinal Tap moment. The only person credited was the Dueling Banjos guy who'd been on the original session. They re-recorded the whole thing, but they didn't want to remake the sleeves.
Right.
And it was like, someone said to the Minnesota band, don't worry, if we make more of them, we'll just put you guys on the sleeve. And they never did. It just was always the same one. So the only guy who got credited is the Dueling Banjos guy.
Dylan didn't give a shit.
Didn't give a shit. He didn't pay anyone.
He didn't care.
No.
Do you know the craziest story about Bob Dylan that I've ever heard? Is that he would doing the basement tapes shit in Woodstock
Late
with
60s,
the band.
Yeah.
Hanging out.
Pastoral phase.
Yeah. Hanging out. And all of a sudden, one morning he got on his motorcycle and went to the store.
Yeah.
So he told the band. But what he actually did, in the middle of all that, he went to Nashville and recorded John Wesley Harding in a weekend.
It's amazing.
And he just got somebody to get a bass player and a drummer to come in. Didn't teach them any of the songs. He just started playing. And that you talk about flubs. There's about 100 on that record. And they just literally did it. He played them a couple times, and then they cut the record, and then he went back and just continued. And that's the stuff. I'm not jealous, but I am. And I'm just like, really? Like that? You just had those songs just cooking on the back burner?
Speed. He was just...
Probably.
Yeah, he was the speed freak, wasn't he?
That's what I'm talking about.
But he'd go up, I remember, to get up and take his kids to school. And the band, they'd party all night. But he'd get up, take his kids to school, do some speed, have a coffee, write lyrics all morning. Yeah. And then the band would get up out of their sort of stupor and he'd be like, okay, I've got 6 new songs, let's go. Basement tapes. Bam. So it was just that period of time.
Yeah, speed. That's the secret to all of it. We could all be as good as Bob Dylan
or
if
Todd
we did
Rundgren.
More speed.
Or Todd Rundgren in
Tommy James.
Yeah. Be as nice as him too.
I like that Bob Dylan era where he's wearing a kind of studded leather jacket all the time.
Like the studded approach.
80s, you know what I mean? He's kind of
studded feel.
He's like, I'm still
cool. I'm a cool guy. Yeah, it's like
blues.
Was that One Earring, Bob?
Yes, exactly. That era.
Kind of George Michael kind of approach.
Yeah. Mike Don DeVito in that interview too is a great part. He's like, and I think he says Bob really shines on his hard blues numbers on this album. That's what he said. He's like, Meet Me in the Morning, hard blues.
Hey, you
I
want
was
to
like, that's a stretch.
See, it's interesting. The things that make you feel despair or kind of concern about your relationship.
They make me want to work harder, James.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you what. Then there's these moments where music just eats itself, and it makes me want to actually end it. In terms of my relationship with music.
It's all the same energy that we're feeling.
Here's mine. Meet Me in the Morning, only been played once live, ever, period. he played it with Jack White. He came out and did duet with Jack White, where Jack White could let blues on it. And that's the only time it's ever been played. That's like when...
Well, you need a hard blues player to play that
you
song.
need a hard blues player. Strictly blues.
Yeah.
With respect to tone.
What's your favorite Dylan hard blues track? You know which one I like? Gonna change my way of thinking.
Okay.
It's about him turning Christian. It's on...
I don't know. I would have said things like... I don't know, because like, I don't know those late... I would have
He
said
does
something
a lot
like
of hard
Pledging My
blues.
Time or something.
Yeah, or leopard skin peel box.
Yeah. I wouldn't have been able to... Well, the whole first side of Bringing It All Back Home, maybe, or something.
Yeah.
But that's not really...
Oh, yeah, that is kind of pretty hard
It's kind of bluesy,
blues.
but it's not like... It's not recorded in a slick enough way to be considered blue... No, because I mean...
Pledging My Time's a good one.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that. I like Gonna Change My Way of Thinking. It's the same riff as Cocaine and
Some
same
Planet
thing.
Wave stuff, probably. There's probably a bit on there that...
Yeah, that's a bit more kind of pilgrimy stuff.
Still it's the pastoral.
He turned pirate on Blood on the Tracks.
Yeah,
That's where it happened, because it's and the Jack of Hearts.
Yeah, and he also is talking about being in like Tarife, like everyone else,
Yeah,
and like crossing
shelter
over
from the storm.
going to Casablanca to stay in the Continental Hotel. That's
Yeah.
a trip, man.
Where the sailors all come in.
Yeah.
Maybe she'll pick him out again. How long
Must
must he
he
wait?
One more time.
Yeah, his singing. His singing is very... I love it. His voice on Blood on the Tracks, because it's like... He's not into that super nasally, weird... Like,
Yeah.
he gets really nasally in the late 70s, early 80s. It's not as soft as, like, Blonde on Blonde era.
Yeah.
But it's kind of an adult contemporary album.
Yeah.
Like, the
Well, it
songs
is.
are softer.
It
like,
is.
so it's
Yeah.
he's sung beautifully.
It kind of... I mean, I remember when I first got into it, my aesthetic concerns based on the fact that I was like young and, you know, very concerned with, you know, like you are when you're younger, everything has to be authentic to the version of yourself that you think is authentic. And I remember thinking like I might not be allowed to like Blood on the Tracks because it sounds like an adult contemporary record. Like it might not be okay because I'm like, no, I'm like a Highway 61 trilogy
It's
thing.
weird
and
how
it's like,
things were like that.
I was like, I'm not sure if
you
I'm
weren't
really
allowed to like rumors either.
Certainly not allowed to like rumors.
Steely Dan, forget it.
Forget it. Yeah. And that stuff was like...
It became cool at some point.
Or we just stopped caring as much.
I think it became cool because when I was at Zulu, like all of a sudden young kids started coming in and buying Asia.
That's because of Mac DeMarco, I think.
Maybe.
I think
Yeah.
it's a lot to do with like zeitgeist characters within cultural, you know, discourse being being above those concerns and making things cool. I think that also like the weirdly like musicianship has become cool weirdly, like the exact opposite of Dylan. Like it's cool to be able to like Steve Gadd's cool now, or like you see like the Instagram is like full of like people playing guitars as if they're like playing esports, you know, like, oh, I can play this like slick solo. And Steely Dan, obviously you like them for various other reasons. There's so much more, like obviously like the witty lyricism and just the vibe, and they always have an ironic distance even from the fact that they're doing that, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But like I think that is very easily to gloss over, like the Night Fly, you know, like that kind of stuff. You could just listen to it and be like, oh, this is just so slick, which probably a lot of people did.
Yeah.
At the time,
of course they did.
But now it's also like, you know,
I think it's just a distance from it is what does
Sure.
it. That's
Yeah.
all. Like it's like, you know, like in the 90s grunge and all that was cool because like 80s like
Yeah.
slick production shit wasn't cool.
Yeah.
It was too close to it. And then what happened? You get to like the 2000s and that shit's the coolest.
yeah,
Like, you know what I
it's
mean? It's like
interesting with Blood on the Tracks.
disco came around, people came around to it.
Because
Like,
Blood on the Tracks, actually thinking about it, just like isn't any of that anything. It's
but I
like
mean, Dylan was never doing what anybody else was. Like
it's a slick Dylan record, but given what you know about how it was made, it's like slick accidentally.
look, we know we've sent the promo copies out. The radio stations have told us this is gonna chart.
This will chart.
And we're not talking about charting on some kind of. This is top 40 radio material. We know.
I think I thought it. Maybe I thought it was made in the 80s or something when I was younger. Maybe I thought that was the issue. It's like it kind of had like a soft, like blue-eyed soul feel.
Yeah, it's quite a produced sounding record.
Could be on the bridge.
For him, I mean,
you would hear. You could be.
You know the first.
What would be the song that they played on the bridge though? You're a big girl now.
Yeah, I mean that one's got that kind
of feel, that kind of condescending masculinity. That you often need to get played on.
Well, Dylan can cut deep, man. He can cut deep in those words.
Yeah,
but you know, it's from a place where he's in pain too.
Bird on the horizon.
He's in pain too. Like we were talking last night about when he says, you know. What I'm going out of my mind with a pain that stops and starts, like a cork screwed in my heart.
And the
fact that Alex said, Alex, you should be doing this podcast.
She's on marketing.
She was saying what an amazing imagery that is, because it would stop and start a corkscrew as you turn it each time. It's just gorgeous, man. Those lyrics.
Yeah, and you know how we're also really concerned with like not only knowing this kind of stuff about records, but being able to talk eloquently and seem sophisticated but edgy. Kind of like, like those guys who dress up like Johnny Depp. Everyone knows them. Everyone has like a guy at their local bar who dresses up like Johnny Depp. Not Pirates of the Caribbean Depp, but like peak Depp. They kind of like
what's peak, like Edward Scissorhands?
No, that would actually be a good look. I'm thinking more like, kind of fedora facial, like kind of like
that's
indigenous
like now
facial
that's
hair.
Now.
Yeah. Those guys. But not like there's a guy when I was in Manchester who started doing like a full Pirates of the Caribbean look, like doing like the dreads and like, that.
That's
not
cool.
That style. I'm talking about like
I'm more into that.
I'm talking about more like Hollywood vampires, like
Depp on a Saturday going to get a coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
Vibe.
So like those guys are kind of
TMZ.
They're kind of putting TMZ Depp. Yeah, they're kind of they're just taking someone else's personality, supplanting it onto themselves, and hoping that they can get away with it. And that's
those people just don't know how to dress or look, though.
Sure,
that's all it is.
Listen to this.
They think this is Johnny Depp, so he.
Yeah, that's all it takes. If I look like him, it might
be how to dress when you're just on your free time. But they're totally wrong, because celebrities don't know how to dress on their free time. Yeah, that changed in like, you know what I mean? I feel like have you ever seen pictures of Brad Pitt in like '98 walking around like he's just wearing like
they're pap outfits. They're like,
well, they don't have identities.
They're avoiding getting pap. They're in that like anti-pap outfit.
They also just don't have personalities.
No, because they're actors.
They're only whoever
someone puts on them.
Of what they're vessels for their roles.
That's what they are.
So then you tell them, put on a clothes. They're like, I need a costume director to know what to wear to go to get a coffee.
Certainly.
So they just get like a fedora,
or like a Von Dutch
and like a wallet chain thing.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell is he doing? Like, why don't you just dress like you dressed in like a movie or something? Because he doesn't.
Yeah, you looked really good in I don't know,
Blow Up or Blow Up. What's it? Cry
True
Baby.
Romance.
Yeah. Whatever.
Mr. and Mrs. Brown or whatever it's called.
Whatever.
I don't know.
Meet Joe Black. Just wear a suit.
Sure, just wear a fucking suit. Like, you look good in Ocean's 11, man.
I know.
Chill out.
They don't get it though. It's
Fight Club even.
Like Daniel Day-Lewis. You ever seen him? Like, he looks crazy.
Listen,
dude.
that guy's he's a haberdasher, isn't he? He's a cobbler.
Yeah.
He doesn't make music. He doesn't make movies anymore. He's a cobbler. That's all he's doing.
I'll never believe that.
What,
he'll be back in a year.
Oh,
no, this is how it'll go. Daniel, it's Marty.
Yeah.
Hey, Marty. I can't. What is he, Irish?
Hey, Martin,
Irish.
yes.
Hello, Marty. How are you?
I don't think he's like a leprechaun Irish. I think he's probably like sophisticated
well,
Irish.
I can. And then it'd be like, listen, get this.
American Irish.
Get this.
Get this.
I got it.
We got Robbie here.
You?
Robbie.
No. This is how it would have gone before. Daniel, it's Steven. Steven who? Spielberg.
Yeah.
Get this. I know you're talking about retiring.
It's Steve.
Steve. Hello, Steve. I know you're thinking about retiring. Okay?
Yeah, I am thinking about that.
Two words for you.
What are those, Stephen?
Abraham Lincoln.
Team of rivals.
He's like, okay. He's like, all right. He's like, all right.
Time of
He's
rivals.
like, no, but not any Lincoln.
No.
I'm not thinking easy Lincoln. He's young. He's fit. I'm thinking old. He's thin.
Sure.
He's at his
sinewy.
So Stephen,
wiry.
you're saying I'll have to
Method.
lose a bit of
I'll
weight
have
for
to
this
go
one.
method.
Huh? I'll have to lose a bit of weight. How many pounds do you think I'll have to drop?
Yes.
Or at least 50, 60 pounds for this role.
You would probably, no pounds. That'd be right.
Yeah, and then he said, "I'm listening."
Interesting.
I'm
so you
listening.
think it's all about, it's got weight issues.
Well, these guys, Christian Bale, Daniel Lewis,
Yeah,
they
let
want to know
drop
how
in.
much weight they have to lose.
Yeah, before they'll
for
even
the role,
talk.
because
Before
that's
they'll
the
even
only
talk
way they're
about
going to get
money.
an Oscar nomination.
And Joaquin Phoenix has become one of those
Tom
characters
Hardy
too.
gets the call. Tom, how you doing? I know you're taking the year off. You don't
Yeah.
want to do a lot. Get this, Capone,
Yeah,
Al Capone.
yeah.
It seems a bit easy, you know.
Yeah.
It's a gangster thing. I've done it
Sure.
before. No. Capone at 60 years old.
Yeah.
He's fat. He's bald.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're talking some prosthetics
yeah.
kind of stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You're going to have to put on at least 30, 40 pounds for this.
It's interesting
I'm
that
listening.
all it really takes to win an Oscar is drastic weight loss
That
in
is.
man.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how in the 90s and 2000s, if you were willing to play a disabled person, but you weren't disabled, you'd
Exactly.
win. It'd be like, incredible.
Exactly.
You played that retarded person so well, we'll give you...
Tom.
Yeah.
Bobby Zemeckis here.
Yeah.
Get this. We got a role for you as a little book came out, Forrest Gump. Well, I think I read that. What do you mean? The
Yeah.
guy's like...
Yeah. Retarded or something?
No. You don't get it. He's a ping pong champion.
He runs
He's
a
a
lot.
war hero.
Yeah.
He's a marathon runner. I'm listening.
Okay.
I'm listening.
Yeah. It's interesting. Or like Russell Crowe in A Beautiful Mind
Yeah.
kind of energy.
He's a math G, exactly.
Yeah. Who's eating Gilbert Grape?
That one, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
No?
That one
Listeners,
is more. That one's
remind
more.
us
That
of the-
one's more like just it's actually
it's good.
like a role. It's the guy doesn't have any special powers or anything.
Well, not all people on the spectrum have a special power.
No, but in these movies they do.
Yeah, they often have
In
a special
Forrest
power.
Gump, Beautiful
Yeah.
Mind,
If they're
Good Will Hunting. Well,
Dude,
he's
I
not-
knew a guy who had Tourette's. That's and people would say he'd act out, and people would say to me because I was it's when I was doing social work, and people would be like, he'd be shouting in a shop or something. And I'd be like, it's okay, like he's fine, like he has Tourette's, and I'd be like, wow, that's really sad. So what's his what's his special power? What's his gift? I'm like, they don't all. Doesn't work like that. It's not like really good at he doesn't know pi to 2,000 digits or something just because he can't.
Rain Man.
Yeah. There you go. That Rain Man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Dustin.
Pretty good. Yeah. Pretty good.
Tony
Pretty
Scott.
good.
Or who
Yeah.
directed Rain Man?
Let's just say Tony
Yeah,
Scott.
Tony Scott. It's Tony.
Tony.
Got an
Good,
idea
Tony,
for
good, good,
Tony.
good, Tony, good,
I'm going to
good,
stop
good.
you right there.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop you right there. I
versus
just
Kramer.
did a movie.
Kramer v. Kramer.
I just did
yeah.
Kramer versus Kramer. Look, okay, it was
Yeah.
Oscar. I need a break. I want to hang out with the wife, hang out with the kids.
I
Hear
got
me
a
out.
beautiful young bride.
Hear me out. You play a guy. He's autistic.
Okay,
I'm
another
listening.
artist. I've done this before. Like Van Gogh. What are we talking
No,
about?
not artistic.
Okay.
Autistic.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know. It doesn't sound like I'd have a lot of lines. You know what I mean? Well, you got plenty of lines, buddy.
Yeah.
You should see this guy.
Pretty
you know,
good. Yeah, pretty good. Yeah.
he's a card-playing genius.
Hustler.
He's a hustler. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? He's.
totally.
I'm listening.
Yeah, it is. Anyone else can give us any more movies where people able-minded?
My left foot. Daniel Day-Lewis has done it a few times.
Did noted roles of playing intellectually challenged people.
Quite exploitative, isn't it?
Yeah, just hit us up in the DMs.
That's what I mean.
Say,
What's
yeah,
Eating Gilbert Grape is better because it's like
actually
the kid's he's like
just real.
it's real. It's a
Yeah.
bit more real. Like
It's a bit
not,
real, but too
Forrest
real.
Gump,
Too much perspective.
Too much fucking perspective.
Too much. I won't watch Forrest Gump with Sophie. I told her it's one thing I just will not do. I will do anything for love, but I won't do that.
I love it.
There's a novelist called Rick Moody who's a big fan of. Pardon me, one second.
One sec.
Yeah, I'm just gonna. You feel relieved now?
I do. Thank
okay,
you.
Good, yeah. Yeah, this novelist Rick Moody. Never heard of him.
No.
He has a real hot take on Blood on the Tracks. That I think everyone should memorize and try out at the bar. Anytime you meet anyone, women, single women, or just even women with men, because it's likely if you kind of show up with this kind of knowledge, it's just going to blow the whole thing wide open.
Blow anyone away with this.
Blow
kind
anyone.
Of stuff,
this
probably.
is kind of like
I think I know where you're going.
This
with
is
this
kind of sort of like Rolling Stone. That guy, the Rolling Stone Frick. This is kind of some Frick energy.
David Frick.
Some David Frick energy. The guy's on all the classic rock. You can just pretend that you kind of made this up on the cuff too. Go up to someone, just ask them if they know about Dylan. And try and get them talking about it. Try and make them feel like they. Try and make them feel like they brought it up.
That'd be a good entry point.
Have you ever heard of Bob Dylan? And when they say like, "Get away from me," you tried this last night, and I was here, and I had to call the cops. Then try someone else.
Exactly.
Go to a different bar. But Rick Moody said in 2001 in a speech that was subsequently anthologized. So you can imagine, I mean, you say these kind of things, just someone's there just happens to have a tape recorder. It's possible that you'll actually be anthologized for having such opinions. He said, Blood on the Tracks is the best album ever made. At least that's my hypothesis. Best rock and roll record ever. Here's why. It's more heroic than the Sun Sessions. More consistent than Exile on Main Street. More serious than Nevermind the Bollocks. It's better than Revolver because there's no Good Day Sunshine on it. It's more discerning in rage than Nevermind. It's more accepting than What's Going On. It's less desperate than Pet Sounds and more adult than Blonde on Blonde and Highway 61 Revisited.
Harsh words about Good Day Sunshine, man.
Yeah.
I
And
love that
also,
song.
like, I don't know if you can say it's more accepting than What's Going On.
No.
What's accepting about it?
I mean, it is. I get it to an extent, but also hilarious to include Nevermind the Bollocks on the list of the greatest rock and roll records of all time.
Yeah.
That's a joke to me.
So anyway, I almost want to say the whole thing again. It's that good.
I was waiting for you to say Nevermind. I knew that would be there somehow.
Yeah, of course. Such a 90s energy.
It's like the only 90s one that people would include in that conversation somehow.
The Sun Sessions.
The Suns.
It's looking like I'm covering it all.
Like, that's weird. Like, it's not even an album, The Sun Sessions. That's like saying Best of the Beatles or something.
Yeah.
Is that Elvis? Is that what he's talking about? Elvis?
My favorite Beatles record is the best. Ooh, tough one. Best favorite Beatles record?
Either the Red album or the Blue album.
Yeah. I'll have to go with the Blue one.
I mean.
Sir, you know that this isn't actually a record.
Red album, the Red album's got Penny Lane on it, though.
Sir, you know this isn't actually a record that you're buying your son.
Actually, sir, young man, I was around.
I was there. I changed the world.
There.
I was part of the generation.
My generation
changed
invented the
world.
Beatles.
Yeah. And we'll take it back
And
whenever we goddamn please.
With force,
With
if
force.
need be.
With force.
We'll
I'll
do whatever
set up
it takes
I'll do whatever
to
it takes.
reclaim them.
If
from
I
the
was
likes
there
of
on that
you.
day, let's roll.
Let's roll.
Let's roll.
For freedom.
For freedom. Freedom to purchase. And when I purchase this record, I'll call it whatever I goddamn like.
I thought the Beatles were good for many years until people like you started listening to them.
Yeah.
You've really ruined it for everybody else.
Yeah. There's only
Little
two kinds of
punks like
people
you.
in this world. People who loved Nixon and people who think Nixon didn't go far enough.
Yeah.
And as for you, kind of hippie clothes wearing, look at you dressed up like
What are you, fucking Bob
Wings
Dylan?
Wings McCartney?
Yeah.
What are you? Starts getting
You know
really
about that.
Yeah. You're pastoral Dylan.
My generation invented the sweater vest.
There you go. You know, Hootie and the Blowfish paid serious tribute to the Blood on the Tracks record in their 94-95 smash Only Wanna Be With You. I don't know if you know that song.
How was that? I do know it. I only want to be with you.
They quote loads of shit from the record in it. There's like non-stop homages in it. Like they talk about a little Dylan, And then they have a quote from You're a Big Girl Now, a bigger quote from Idiot Wind, like said I shot a man named Gray, took his wife to Italy. You know that habit? She inherited $1 million.
Of course.
And when she
I
died.
can't help it if I'm lucky.
Yeah. Idiot.
You know, my dad loved Hootie and the Blowfish just because they were a multiracial group.
I mean, that's an early way to get into that kind of stuff.
But it was so funny to me because it was as though it's such a kind of dad, like a boomer dad thing, as though he'd never heard of any other black musicians.
No, it's just like Get Out. It's like the Get Out.
Yeah, it's like
energy.
he's like, you know, it's just so cool that they'd let a black guy be in the band.
Totally.
And
That
I'm like,
sounds right.
what are you talking about? Like,
Totally. Well, you know, now we're back in. That is like the clock. The racism clock has just ticked back, kind of towards that style of racism as opposed to just latent.
well, they think they're being super tolerant
by saying things like brother,
by saying things like
by
it's just-
using words.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know,
Brother man.
what you're
Yeah.
saying is racist in
Yeah.
itself, even though, you know, but it comes from a
But you know
good
what? I'll
place
tell you
or
this:
something. I don't know.
Dylan sued Hootie and the Blowfish. And he got $500,000 from them.
No way.
Yeah.
Can't help it if he's lucky.
Yeah, he got a 6-figure payout, ownership of half the publishing on the songs.
Why?
And a co-writing credit. And here's the best bit.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Dude, you can't throw this shit at me like this.
This
You
is true.
Son of a bitch.
This is real. And you know what the fucking best bit about it is? Rucker didn't hold him against him and co-wrote Wagon Wheel with him. He was like, fuck it. Like, you know, Dylan wants to sue me. I'm in. Let's write a song together.
He was stoked to just make
be
that connection.
within the pantheon. Yeah. The canon. He's just in the canon. Hootie and the Blowfish, he can say.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to
Should.
write a song and just put
Try and get
Dylan lyrics
sued.
in it just to hang out with him.
Yeah.
In court.
Yeah. In court.
Just to like
Got
get a
him
hang
showing
with him.
up.
Like, will you just like get up on the stand and just kind of tell him what a big fan I am?
Like his mood in We Are the World.
Oh man,
You've seen the fake.
Of
This,
course.
you
Kidding
know
me?
that's a Vom Cruise meme.
he started that.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Shout out. Big respect to our
I mean,
main
that's
man,
the
Vom.
greatest meme ever created.
Yeah, that's a Vom Cruise meme. Current mood. Dylan in the We Are the World video.
He did that
Yeah,
first.
that's his. Look it
It
up.
sounds like a
man.
Richard Lewis thing in Curb Your Enthusiasm that he studied like
He did
like what is the thing he did? The wife from hell.
Yeah.
Whatever, the blank from hell.
Yeah, no, that's a Vom Cruise special. There's another one that he did that's really big too, but I don't understand it as much. It's about every member of Biffy Clyro looking like a specific actor, but I think you have to watch TV, and I'm far too busy.
I don't know anything about what you're talking about.
Messing around with my anti-skating mechanism on my Quartz Lock Kenwood vinyl.
You know, the
turntable.
first time my first introduction to Blood on the Tracks was I was probably about 15.
Yeah.
And I was watching Much Music.
Okay.
And they had a show, a part of the show was called Much, like retro.
Oh, nice.
It was like Much Flashback
Yeah,
or something.
yeah, flashback.
And this song came on. That was a video of Bob Dylan playing Blood on the Tracks during the Rolling Thunder. Playing Tangled Up in Blue during the Rolling Thunder review.
Yeah.
And the entire video is a close up of his face
Yeah.
with the white
makeup on, yeah.
and nothing else, and him sweating and playing it double speed, almost like it's so
Yeah,
fast,
like a
and
punk.
nailing it and the intensity. And I just remember looking at that and being just transfixed by it. And then it wasn't until about 10 years later they actually discovered the record. But I just remember, you know,
Yeah.
when you're like 15 and being like, I couldn't look away. You know?
Yeah, I listened to that record when on the plane. You know, records that you listen to them to put yourself in an emotional state.
Yeah.
Like they just put you in that sort of state, and they're just like, you can just put them on, and that's what's going to happen. That record used to do it to me, and I was like going through a breakup
Still
when I
does.
moved to Vancouver. So like in 2004, and 2005, and I'd be on the plane, and it would be like, the plane's taking off, bam, let's go, Tangled Up in Blue. I'm just gonna sit here and try not to cry, but like feel myself.
I mean,
such pathos.
Look, we talk.
I believe
there
you
are
did a
certain
similar
records-
thing with a record, Going to California or something.
There are certain records, namely Love Chronicles, Al
Yeah.
Stewart, and Blood on the Tracks, that for any of you young men out there listening,
Yeah.
if you've ever been kind of burned
Yeah.
by a lovely windswept lass,
A windswept approach.
Like, you know, that kind of windswept woman.
Okay, yeah.
Free,
a siren, a free bird.
Free-spirited.
Free-spirited.
And you kind
Temptress.
of, let me tell you, these records, they're going to hurt you, but they're going to get you through it.
Yeah, and you know, really it's all about winning. And, you know, that's what it's about. So... You want to get through that? You want to learn a little bit? Well, you know, you got to get over it first.
Oh, I see.
It's a fast track to getting over it.
Yeah,
if you get your grief out of your system.
It'll solidify the pain a bit, but like you need it.
Like a corkscrew to the heart.
You need it. You need to feel it, man.
You do.
It's going to make you stronger.
Buckets of rain, buckets of tears.
I got all these buckets coming out of my head.
Look at the moonbeams.
We listen.
That's a weird one. Like, everything about it is bringing me misery.
I'm taking you with me, honey, baby, when I go.
Yeah. What does he mean by that?
I was like listening to that with Alex last night, my lovely long-term girlfriend.
Beautiful bride. Young bride.
My beautiful young bride. And let me tell you, I said to her, I was like, if we ever broke up, I couldn't even fucking listen to this.
No.
Like, it would just destroy me.
No.
You know? Like, that's what I mean about what I was talking about earlier. Like, it's painful to hear such beautiful music, man.
We have, it's duende.
Yeah.
It's duende.
I feel it, man. I feel it hard, that's all.
It's truth, no?
It's joy and pain at the same time.
It's duende. It's art. You know what it is? It's the kernel of art, the real kind of, the kernel of it, not being love, but the misery that love brings.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, it's duende.
It's the same thing to me. Joy and pain.
You should read some Lorca, man.
Oh, I've done that.